In this part of our tutorial, we are going to design the layout of our app. So this is important because we first want to design what the product will look like and then add the functionality later. Designing is the easy part, the coding is the hard part. So during this tutorial, we're going to recognize which inputs and outputs we want and add the necessary fields such as text inputs, buttons, whatever we need. Welcome back. In this part of the tutorial, we're going to actually design the layout of our apps. This will be how it will look, although we'll not actually do any real coding just yet. So here I am in Xamarin Studio, and I'm in my main.axml file. So again, this is just designing how the app looks. So on my right is my toolbox, and this has all of my buttons and text fields and basically anything else I could want to add on here. So this is a tip calculator, so we'll probably have two inputs. It will have the cost and also the amount of tip. So for example, if we're going to a restaurant, we'll have a meal cost, and then we'll have the amount of tip we want to add. So maybe 15%, or if they're really good, maybe 20%. So that's two inputs right there, and we want this calculator to calculate exactly what the tip is, and then what the final cost of, again, going on the restaurant example, what the final cost of the meal would be once the button is clicked. So right now we know we'll want two input fields, the cost and the tip. We'll want a button to trigger some kind of an event, and then we'll want an output field. So that's four things right now. Let's go ahead and add those. So right now the default simulator has a button that says hello world, click me. We don't want this button here, so we're just going to get rid of it. I've selected it just by clicking on the button, and now I'm clicking delete just to get rid of that. So we want input fields, which are going to be text fields. So in my toolbox here, I'm going to scroll down to text fields. I'm going to find plain text, and I'm just going to click on it and drag it in. Now this just creates a plain text field, so some kind of an input field, although it hasn't actually written the code for it. We'll do that in the next video. Right now, again, we're just designing the layout. So we have one input field, and if we select it, we can increase the height or decrease the height just by clicking on this little circle here. And these arrows, if this arrow is clicked, it will cause this particular field to fill up all of the remaining space. As you can see, it now takes up all of the app space, and if we click it, then it goes back to normal. So now we have one plain text. Let's add another text field for the tip. So we'll have meal cost here, or whatever it is that we're buying, and then we'll have tip here. Now we want some kind of a button, so we'll scroll up to button, and then this, when pressed, will trigger the calculation and give us an output. And now we need somewhere for the output. So we can have text fields. Let's have a text view. We don't want to be able to modify this after all. I'm going to make this text view a little bigger because right now it's tiny. So if I select that and drag it down, there we go. And in fact, why don't I make all of these just a little bit bigger? We can fiddle around with the fine-tunings a little later. Right now I just want to get the basics down. Cool, so right now we have input 1, which will be the cost, input 2, which will be the tip, the button, which when pressed will perform the calculations, and output our total cost in this text box here. So in this part of the tutorial, we designed the layout of our app. So we added two text input fields at the top, a button to perform the calculations and spit our output out, and we have an output field as well. So by now you should be able to design a layout of an app by adding buttons or input or output fields or whatever is necessary.